Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to explain and solve one of the interesting problem statements which is asked more frequently in the top tech companies. So the problem statement goes like this. So let's say you have given two arrays A and B and a target value. We have to pick a pair from the arrays whose sum will be closer to the target. So in this case, let's say you have array A with some elements and array B with with the other elements, assuming the length of the array would be the same, and you have given a target value of 17. So you have to build an algorithm in such a way that the pair of the elements that gives as an output should be close to 17, but it should not be equal to 17. So let's say then the output of the pair of elements whose sum would be something like, it could be 16 or it could be 15 or it could be 18 or it could be 19 and so on and so forth. So that could be the possibility where you have to build an algorithm. So for this you can think about a brute force approach initially. So the brute force approach could be, let's say you have these arrays, you pick an element from array A and try to calculate the sum with all the other elements in the array B, and you follow the same process for each and every element in the array A. So this can be done and this can be achieved in a simple manner, but the problem would be if your input size is large, then this solution may not be the optimal one, and the time complexity for this would be big of n square, as you are taking each and every element in one array and trying to make some calculation with all the other elements in array B. So is there any better efficient solution for this, or is there any better way to tackle this problem? And that would be the second approach. So here the efficient solution that we are planning to do is, let's say we have these two arrays, we can take first array and put it into one set, and then we can traverse through with the second array to check if there is any pair that adds up to the target value 9, for considering this example over here. So let's say you have these array B, the first index of the element would be 7. So when you get the value 7, you will try to see whether is there any element that will be closer to the target 9. So if you see here, you have the element 1 in the complete set, which is 1, which sums up to 8, and that 7 and 1 would be your pair for this particular use case. So let's say if you do not have this one element over here, you may have to go to the next element, which is 10, and check if there is any element that would be helpful for us to get a closest pair for this target. So here when you get a value, when you have this element 10, you have to look for the value 0, but unfortunately we do not have any such kind of element in array A. So we'll get to the next index again. So this would be the continuous process for the array B, and this is much more better solution than the first one, which is a brute force algorithm. So in this case the time complexity would go for big of n, because you are actually going through the each of these arrays only once. So this O of n would be something like O of x into n, because this, let's say here the example contains only the 4 elements, but what if you have hundreds of elements in array B? So that count would go as x. So ideally it boils down to the same, big of n. So this is another better approach compared to the first one, but still there is a scope of improving this algorithm, which I'm going to explain in this Excel sheet. So this is the best solution, I would say, for this kind of problem. So let's say here you have an array A and array B, and the target would be 17. So in this case, what we are going to do is I'm going to sort these both elements and make you understand with the help of this matrix. So let's say you have sorted these both elements and we are going to place it over here. The first array and the second array would go something like this. So in this case, when you actually sum up all the combinations of elements in both the arrays, you will end up having these all values, which could range from the 3 to 34. But what we are interested in is to get the closest value for the target, which is 17 over here. So if you look over here, so in this case we have something like 16 over here where we can actually mark it, which is much more closer to 17. And in the same way you have 19 and you have 18 over here and the same way 98. So yeah, so looking at this matrix, you should be able to identify a pattern in this particular use case where you have these diagonal way of representing the numbers that are closer to target, whereas compared to the other elements which are spreading all over the place from 3, 10 and 26, 28, 34. So by looking at this, we can assume that why don't we start the elements picking up the lower one from array A and the higher one from the array B. So let's focus on this matrix now. So if you have this element 1, so when you try to sum up with the higher element of 18, so you would get the calculation, the sum would be 19 over here. So in this case, what you can understand is, so whatever the elements that you try to sum up with this array B, which is like 4 plus 18 or 8 plus 18, all the elements would have the higher value. So it is pointless to calculate these particular elements with the higher number in this array. It's because the calculation that we have done is giving you the higher value compared to the target. So in this case, we would actually come to the next position, which is 12, and try to calculate with this element. So this would give you the value of 13. So in this case 13 is less than 17. So when you get such value, you can actually ignore all these calculations because 13 is already less than 17. So whatever the value that you try to calculate over here would be less than 13. So after identifying this value, you can actually increment this array to the second index and then start calculating the sum. So in this case it would boil down to 16. So 16 is way close to 17, so the only difference is 1. So this could be your ideal closest pair that you are looking at, and this would result the value as 4 and 12. So 4 and 12 is the solution that we are looking at for this particular use case. So in the same way, you can, if you want to get all the values that are closer to 17, which is in this case 16, and 2 is also one of the value that we can look after, then you can actually traverse through all the values and pick those pair elements that are closer to value 17. I hope you got the high level understanding of what kind of algorithm that we are going to build for this problem statement. So let's get into the implementation part. Okay, so here we are taking up the array 1 and array 2 from the command line, the target value as well. So there is a function which I have predefined it called as get closest elements. So let's start coding on this. Okay, so initially, as I said, we are going to sort both the arrays. So once we have done with the sorting, we need the counters. So if you look at the Excel, so whenever we find the value which is bigger than the target and lesser than the target, we want to increment and decrement the indexes like here. So for this, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to declare an increment counter which starts with 0. So that is the one element, and the decrement counter which starts with the last element of the array 2. Okay, so having this, so let's initialize the basic difference value from both the arrays. So that would go something like init subtracted value, which is an initial one, array of 0, array of 2 minus target. So this will give you a subtracted value initially. So we want to remove the negative sign if it is less than the target. So that way we are going to use the absolute function for that. And let's declare the result as a tuple having the array 1 comma array 2 with the first elements. Alright, so let's get into the loop part. So here I'm declaring a while loop where I would say the increment counter should be less than the length of array 1 and decrement counter should be greater than or equal to 0. So as increment counter has started from the first element of the array, and the decrement counter has been started from the last element from the other array, which is array B in this example. So we want to traverse through over all the elements in both the arrays. So here I am going to fetch the element from the first array. In the same way, I am going to get the other element from the array B. So once you get this, we want to calculate what is the subtracted value from both the arrays. Array 1 element, array 2 element minus target would give us the latest sub value. So if you remember, the initial sub value we have taken from the initial elements of both the arrays, and this is the latest sub value which we have taken in by taking the first index and the from array A and the last index from array B. We want to compare whether the latest sub value difference is lesser than the initial sub value. So for that, if absolute latest sub value is less than the initial sub value, so this would give us whether if the latest sub value is closer to the target value that we are looking at. So here we redeclare the initial sub value as latest sub value, and the result would be array 1 element and array 2 element. So once we have done this, so we want to check if the latest sub value is equal to 1. So why I am to check? It's because if it is equal to 1, then there is no point in going forward to calculate all other sums of the arrays, because we have identified the pair in the first iteration itself. So if absolute latest sub value is equals to 1, then result array 1 element, array 2 element, return the result. So here I am redeclaring the result just because if the above condition may not succeed some of the times if the latest sub value is not less than the initial one. So just trying to be getting the latest elements if the difference is 1. Then if it is not equals to 1 and if it is latest sub value is less than 0, I am going to increment the counter, else I am going to decrement the counter, the other part. So here the latest sub value I am incrementing by 1 when the latest sub value is less than 0. So here if you see here 13 is less than 17, so I am incrementing the value from 1 to 4 just to avoid calculating the other 3 elements of this. And in the same way, if the latest sub value is greater than 0, which means it is the value 19 is greater than 17, so just to avoid these calculations I am decrementing the value so that it would come from index 8 into 12. Alright, I think once we have done this, finally we are going to return the result. So just in case if the latest sub value doesn't equal to 1, maybe in both the arrays, if the pair of elements is not so close to the target, something like the difference of if the difference is not 1, then we are going to return the result with whatever the difference it may have. It could be like 5 or 10, anything it could be. So this would be better understandable if I run this code. So let me take this up and clear the things. Okay, alright, so now I'm going to run this. Let's pick these elements, place it here. The second array goes over here. The target is 17. Yeah. So if you see here, we have received the output as 216, which sums up to 18. So which is very close to the value 17. Alright. So now for the other use case, let's say you have something like this, and the same elements in the array B, but the value that you want to locate is closer to 300. So in this case, if you observe, what it actually tried to do is it tried to get the elements which are closer to the target 300. So in this case, if you see, so none of the elements are so closer to the value 300. So what it has tried all these calculations with each and every element in the complete matrix and identified the higher elements of both these arrays are only the elements which are in some way closer to the value target 300. Sorry. I hope you like this video. I hope this is my first video on the YouTube channel. I think it is helpful, and I hope you like this video, and feel free to ask if you have any questions, and please do subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. And I'll be coming up with much more interesting content on coding interview questions, and we'll start a playlist in a while on a data science and share my work experience as well. Thanks for watching. See you next time.